Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, the return of contests. We'll tell you how you can win fantabulous prizes. And Katie Wilson's insane audio proves she shouldn't even be running a lemonade stand. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Everybody here knows there's an election tomorrow, right? I mean, I know the KVI audience knows there's an election tomorrow. But so many people are so busy fighting over stupidity that it seems like they have forgotten there's an election tomorrow. And the question is that part of the plan? Somebody I haven't seen in a while came strolling through the office today. Somebody who doesn't do much of the social media. And they were saying, Ari, what's going on with this infighting in the GOP? And why are some people supporting being anti-Semitic? This person, if they know about this internal civil war in the GOP, and they're clued into GOP stuff, but this has been mostly online, that means this isn't online anymore. Which means that whoever hatched this idea is being successful. Because instead of discussing the fact that we are about to be taken over by the Democratic Socialists of America, coast to coast, in some of our country's biggest and greatest cities, we are talking about the GOP civil war. And what's fascinating to me is the left isn't talking about it, because when your enemy is making mistakes, don't interrupt them. That's what's happening right now. And it saddens me because we're going to lose elections. We're going to lose elections tomorrow. We're going to lose elections in the future as long as this nonsense continues. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Washington's gubernatorial race. It's that all over again. What happened in Washington's gubernatorial race? Bob Ferguson running for governor. Presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. Presumptive governor, I would argue. And the question was, who could stop Bob Ferguson? Well, there was a guy named Semi Bird. And Semi Bird was running for a very, very, very long time. Long before a guy named Dave Reichert, who's the guy who you might remember from arresting the Green River Killer, the investigation with King County sheriffs. Before he got in the race, there was Semi Bird. But Semi Bird was never really breaking into the conversation at all. So what happens? The left saw an opportunity. Well, if we can help pump up Semi Bird, then maybe it'll distract from Dave Reichert. Maybe we can get people hating Dave Reichert on the right. And that's exactly what happened. Mike, how many nameless, faceless accounts were on us every 5 minutes about that election, and then the second the election was over, went quiet, and we haven't heard from them since.
Erased from existence.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. That is the exact best way to put it, because that's exactly what happened. These accounts then went dormant. How much time did we spend arguing with them? How much time did we spend fighting with them? And what was amazing was the people calling the show were agreeing with us. Okay, every once in a while you get somebody taking the other side. But overwhelmingly it was people going, look, Dave Reichert's not our favorite candidate, but you know what? This guy, Semi Bird, doesn't have a chance. And then it's scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. He's never going to win. Does any of this sound familiar to any of you? Let's go back in time for a minute here. There was this guy named Ari Hoffman who was running for Seattle City Council against a Democratic socialist named Tammy Morales. A guy named Mark Solomon gets into the race, and the socialists say, hey, if we inflate this guy Mark Solomon, then we can take out Hoffman a lot easier. They did the same thing there. I assume this is not a new game plan. This is what they do. This is just the next evolution of it. What you see happening with this GOP civil war makes no sense to me. Why? Because all the people I know are real people, are people I trust, are people whose opinions I value. They're all on the right side of this. Nameless, faceless bots are on the other side, and a bunch of people I thought were crazy before all this started. We are tearing ourselves apart on the eve of an election, which is the Democratic Socialists of America bread and butter, off-year elections. They have made it very clear what their plan is. Very clear. Off-year elections, you go in, you dominate because there's lower voter turnout, and that's how you seize power. Look at the Seattle City Council. Look at Kshama Sawant. She was the master of this. Why do you think Democrats push so hard to have off-year elections? It used to be you have to worry about this stuff for the midterms, and you have to worry about it for the presidential race. Now, every year is election season. Every single year, because the more off-year elections you can have, the more you can win at the local level. And the more you win at the local level, the more you can change, because what happens locally affects you so much more than what happens nationally. Case in point, Washington State. Great. Is it good that the Trump administration is sealing the border all over the country and exporting illegal aliens and deporting them from the country and arresting the criminals? Absolutely. How much of that is being felt here? Well, I wouldn't know because of sanctuary state policies, sanctuary county policies, sanctuary city policies, we're still having the same problems. Is ICE doing their job? Yes, but it's harder for them to do their job here with the lack of help from law enforcement, which we have discussed ad nauseum here. Because no matter how many you get rid of, they're trying to bring more here. And if they're not coming from outside the country, they're coming from other parts of the country where they're afraid of getting deported there, thinking they'll have a longer chance of staying in this country by going to places like New York, California, and Washington. The Washington State GOP figured this out for a little while. And I got to give credit to Jim Walsh. He was very good at this. When they find these places where they can flip these school boards, when they can flip these city councils. Look at SeaTac. Mike talks about this whenever we have Peter Kwan on. SeaTac untouched, for the most part, by the craziness of Seattle. It's right next door, by the craziness of Burien. Burien had to fix itself, and it didn't do so without some moderate Democrats going, this is too far for us. They were all in on the communist Marxist Kshama Sawant train. But SeaTac was spared from that. What's happening this time? The left realized that the GOP was being successful in these smaller races and redoubled their efforts, like they were building the Death Star, and they heard the Emperor was coming to visit. So they redoubled their efforts, and it looks like they're on the verge of taking power. And they have made no secret about this at all. Canary Mission, an activist group, pulled together DSA leaders from across the country, little snippets here, little snippets there, of them admitting this is their plan. You might be sitting in your car right now going, Hoffman has lost it. Hoffman has totally lost it. Well, let me tell you something, guys. I was following this GOP civil war weeks before anybody else was. We spent all last week talking about it, and now it's in the main national discussion because of what happened with the Heritage Foundation over the weekend. Because of what happened at the Republican Jewish Coalition over the weekend, where now everybody's talking about this. We were talking about this a week, 2 weeks before anybody else because I saw what was coming. My friends, I now understand what is happening. This is a play by the left to distract all of us so they will have an easier time winning elections. How do I know? They said it themselves. Here's the Canary Mission video, and you can hear it from the socialists themselves.
It's no secret that the Democratic Socialists of America hate the Democratic Party.
I think we're all on the same page that we hate the Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party is not really our friend. It isn't.
So why are the DSA such major players in the Democratic Party? This odd relationship can be understood with the cuckoo analogy. In nature, the cuckoo survives by trickery. It lays its egg in another bird's nest. The unsuspecting parents raise the imposter as their own until the cuckoo grows strong enough to push the true chicks out. The DSA is the cuckoo inside the Democratic Party.
DSA is not the Democratic Party.
We must separate ourselves from the toxic Democratic Party
we can put forward a clear, aggressive, principled strategy that pushes back against the Democratic leadership and the Democratic Party as a whole.
DSA candidates run as Democrats in safe blue districts. They slip through low turnout primaries. And once inside, they use the Democratic label as camouflage while advancing an extremist anti-American agenda far beyond the party's mainstream.
I don't agree with the Democratic Party, but it's a great tool.
The Democratic is a tool that we use.
Once in office, DSA candidates take orders from DSA's internal enforcers and working groups. City halls and state houses start running as socialist machines controlled by the organization, not the Democratic Party, and certainly not voters.
They have to have a connection with DSA's internal politics, and they have to be committed to the eventual goal of building a separate entity from the Democrats.
DSA are revolutionaries, and the Democrats are their first victims. And in city after city, DSA victories prove their plan works.
I think that the model that we used in New York is 100% replicatable.
And just like the cuckoo, once the DSA grows strong, it pushes the true Democrats out, hollowing the party from within,
building towards political independence and tearing apart the Democratic Party.
The DSA is not here to strengthen the Democratic Party. It is here to consume it.
We're not here to make the Democrats a little bit better. We're here to actually enact socialism. And socialism is not just better capitalism. It's overthrowing the entire capitalist state.
It's our duty, DSA, to cultivate this power.
The cuckoo is in the nest, and New York City is poised to elect not a Democrat, but Zohran Mamdani, an extremist within the DSA.
We understand that winning an election is not an end. It is a means to an end.
The most important thing that we can do is take that empire down from within.
Ultimately to overthrow our own empire.
We need a movement that can drive a stake through the heart of the empire.
We need to orient ourselves towards insurrection.
Now, we played that for you last week. You're not listening to a repeat episode. Do you know what's happened since that came out? The DSA embraced the video and said, yeah, we're not quiet about it. Thanks for the free campaigning for us to push our message out there. According to Fox News, which was tracking all of this, the analogy which pointed to candidates like self-proclaimed socialist Zohran Mamdani did not appear to bother socialists it was targeting. Rather, they applauded the video advertisement as a great recruitment tool to get more people to join their ranks. Quote, new DSA recruitment ad for communists just dropped, joked Nicholas Vargas in response to the video. He's been affiliated with the Brooklyn branch of the DSA. Are you trying to make young people find DSA more cool? Quipped Marxist socialist blogger C. Derek Varn. New recruitment ad unlocked, said Giovanetta Maragaz, co-chair of the New York City Young Democratic Socialists of America. And they doubled down, more of them, on yes, the Democratic Party sucks. And all you people on the left are looking for a new home? Come on over to us. Democratic Socialists of America have some strange allies, though. Got to give credit to Zohran Mamdani. You know what he did on Saturday night before the election? He went club to club to club to club to club in New York, campaigning. It's crazy to me to see gay bars cheering, celebrating a jihadi, a guy who calls for the intifada. It doesn't just mean Jews. It means anybody who won't submit to Sharia law. Sharia law executes anybody who identifies as LGBTQIA, and you're seeing a whole bunch of them cheering Mamdani in clubs in New York City. The other problem with this election, aside from the fact that it's completely out of whack who's supporting who in this election, all the positive energy is on Mamdani's side. That's all the hope and change action. The only thing you've got on Cuomo's side is, well, he's not Mamdani and Mamdani's dangerous. Which of those are actually going to win? New York City Council member Ina Vernikoff is going to be joining us later in the show. She switched her endorsement from Curtis Sliwa to Cuomo because she knows that Sliwa doesn't have a chance and that the only way Cuomo defeats Mamdani is with Sliwa's voters, and she doesn't like Cuomo. She's very open about this. We'll talk to her later about she is going, Mamdani is the bigger enemy for right now. This is the person we need to stop. So I'm switching my endorsement over to Cuomo. And that's how so many people feel in New York. Is that enough to get people out to the poll? Because there's no positive about Cuomo. We know Cuomo's problems. He's a sex pest, and he killed a lot of people's grandparents with his terrible handling of COVID, just like every other Democrat. So now you've got a problem. You've got a problem where the momentum seems to be on one side, where they're admitting what their plan is. And they're not the only ones doing this little tactic of off-year elections. Linda Sarsour, full-on terror supporter who got ousted from the Women's March for being a rabid anti-Semite, is pushing for Zoran Mamdani. And you know who she's pushing on behalf of? The Council of American Islamic Relations. That's right. She's pushing on behalf of a group that is the unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history, which was guilty of sending money to Hamas, to a terrorist organization. CARE has been a problem for years. I sound like a broken record at this point. But for those of you who thought I was a conspiracy theorist about all this, why don't you listen to Linda Sarsour admitting who's supporting Mamdani?
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race. But I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just that it's random that Zoran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zoran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zoran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country. High net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zoran PAC in New York.
This isn't just the DSA, it's everybody affiliated with the DSA, which includes a terrorist adjacent, I would say, terrorist organization. Zoran Mamdani is the Trojan horse. And all this stuff you're seeing online, all this fighting, the head of the Heritage Foundation coming out and backing Tucker Carlson for supporting a white supremacist. All of that is part of the same thing. They're distracting us from there's an election tomorrow. So many people aren't talking about Zoran Mamdani, who normally would be talking about the dangers of the DSA, the dangers of CARE, the dangers of Zoran Mamdani, and using their platforms to do it. Instead, what are they doing? We're attacking each other. We saw how this played out in Washington State with the governor's race. What do you think is going to happen nationally? Just last week, we were starting to see traction nationally on mini Mamdani, Katie Wilson. We were starting to see it. Derailed by all of this. Nobody's paying attention to that anymore. And by Election Day, it's too late. You got the guy in Minneapolis. You got the guy here. You got the gal there. You got Democratic Socialists across the country. And unfortunately, all anybody's talking about is Mamdani and the fighting inside the GOP. That's all anybody's talking about. Rather than the fact that the Democratic Socialists of America, which want to destroy America, destroy capitalism, replace everything with socialism, have candidates that impose Sharia law, have candidates that support terrorist organization. That is not being talked about because instead everybody's talking about the GOP civil war. You think I'm wrong? You think I'm right? You think I'm crazy? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, your calls, your texts, plus this audio that we have here of Katie Wilson proves she shouldn't be mayor of Seattle. She shouldn't even be running a lemonade stand. We'll tell you what she said when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Speaking of Democratic socialists, Katie Wilson is out there, and video after video after video are popping up on social media about Katie Wilson. And some of these, they claim they're these independent podcasters. These things are the most completely non-staged discussions I've ever seen in my entire life. Are you kidding me with this? No. These are people trying to get her elected, and they're trying to help her seem more personable. However, she's very unlikable, she's very awkward, and she doesn't make any sense, and ends up proving why she should never be mayor of Seattle. She's having a discussion with some people in a park in Magnolia. I don't know Magnolia that well, so I'll give her benefit of the doubt that that is actually a park in Magnolia. And she's talking with two random, non-staged people at all about, they're asking her, which media sources should we trust in all? Okay, can we be real about this a second, Mike? People nowadays don't need you to tell them which media sources to Oh, we just moved here. We don't know what media sources to trust. Are you kidding me with this? Tell me this doesn't sound like the most staged thing ever.
So we just don't really know where to get our information from. That's like that we can really hold on to. So I know I'm sure that's like hard for you, like getting your word out and stuff like that. So I just kind of want to know where we should go to just to know.
No, totally. I mean, and you mean specifically about like the elections and the races kind of thing? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, social media, like you say, it's kind of like, you got to be careful, right? But, we have good local papers from, the Seattle Times, The Stranger, Cascade PBS, the South Seattle Emerald, Publicola, Real Change. Now I don't want to forget any because now that I'm listing them off, I'm like, oh God.
That's true. There are a lot of local
but we have a lot of local papers that are...
Stop. Magically, all except for one of those papers that she listed endorsed Katie Wilson. Magically, all except for one of those outlets she listed, she worked for. Magically, all of those outlets love Katie Wilson's plan of funding independent media, local media. She's going to give us taxpayer money to fund local media. Yeah, completely not staged at all. Now, that wasn't the only thing. This conversation is a little bit longer. It's going to test your patience. But she said, once again, she's doubling down on the failed housing first model, which has been a proven failure. She claims the reason we have so many homeless people is because the costs of living are so high. Never mind who's driving up the cost. Never mind, that is not what's causing it. But that is what she is claiming. That is what she is saying. Give a listen to this absolute insanity she's rambling about.
What's your biggest issue you're worried about in the city? If you could name one. Or five.
Don't limit yourself to one.
Is there anything that you think about, just like living here, where you're like, I wish this was better?
I guess the thing for me, I'm from Minnesota. I've lived here for about just over 2 years.
Right.
And like the housing crisis and just like the homeless, that was like a shock for sure. Like, and still to this day, it's just something that I guess like hits home for me. So that's like something that definitely comes to mind right away for me. But again, like could list 1 to 5 to 10. So there's, like a bunch of different issues, and I'm sure it's hard to, tackle all of that at once. But yeah, that was the first one that came to mind for me, for sure.
What do people, if you're talking to some, she's fairly new. So all she sees is like the optics side of it, maybe, and then like what you, maybe around your house or on your way to work or something. What is like what's the first thing you say to people about how that could be better?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, housing and homelessness is absolutely one of the top issues for most people right now. And I mean, I'll say just from a personal perspective, like I'm a renter. I live on Capitol Hill with my family in an apartment. And so just the way that rents have been going up and up and up. And if you want to like buy a home in the city, it's just, exactly.
That's so funny.
So that's just like a really common refrain. And of course, housing and homelessness are linked too, right? Like part of the reason why we have so many homeless people is that housing costs are so high. And that's really going to be like one of my top priorities.
So hang on. I'll make sure I got this right.
There's so much to unpack here.
There's so much. Yes, I'm sure she moved from Minnesota. And you notice the guy who's doing the interviewing, he says, what are your, how would you address this, Katie, right? How do you solve this? Because there's the optics of all this. Right. Mike, last night I came down here. So me and my wife could go see Back to the Future in IMAX at the Pacific Science Center. Last week I said to you, how many people do you randomly almost hit when you're driving down here? Yesterday, I almost hit somebody on every block. It was zombie land down here yesterday. What is it? The weekend comes and all the zombies come out? That is not a housing affordability issue. That is a drug issue. That is a mental health issue. That is a substance abuse issue. And all things she's talking about, freezing the rent, are going to get developers not to invest here and drive up the costs, which has been happening for, I don't know, since they declared homelessness an emergency here, which was 16 years ago? And they said we're going to put an end to homelessness in 10 years. You've only made it exponentially worse. But now, my favorite part is where we find out that these people may not have been staged. These people, I think they were still staged. But the stupidity they have them say proves that her plan will never work. These people claim they were forced out of their home for low-income housing. What I say all the time. So you have the developers who are competing now with you to buy that single-family house, but also they're competing with the state and the government. So it's not me competing against you for a house. It's me competing against the state, competing against the county, competing against the city, and competing against the developers and you for a house. This was the biggest self-own ever. And they were dumb enough to put it in their totally organic video.
It was actually crazy because we moved to Magnolia about almost a year ago. It'll be a year in February, but we lived in First Hill and...
Stop. Magnolia is one of the most expensive areas of the city. Let's start there. Keep going.
When we were moving out of our place because they were changing it into low-income housing, which is great because it's a great location for it to be, but we didn't fit into the category of being in low-income housing, and it was too expensive to have normal, so there was just a big middle wage.
So hang on. I want to make sure I got this right. You had an apartment that was converted to low-income housing, so you lost it. And why would you put low-income housing in Magnolia? Different discussion for later. Why are we buying that? So you lost it because of the very plans that Katie Wilson is supporting. At the end of this video, they go, hey, Katie Wilson, you've got our vote. The biggest self-own of the campaign, and unfortunately, too many people are too stupid to see through this.
Okay, so I sometimes can't brain. I has the dumb. Let me make sure I got this right. So you're now too rich to live in low-income housing on Checks Notes First Hill.
Yes.
So now you've been displaced. So now you must move to also Check Notes Magnolia.
Right. Two of the most expensive
I have all this
areas.
Money. I don't know what to do with it.
Oh, my God. How do I afford to live
Drowning
here?
in it.
Yes. My favorite part was when they were discussing how people who work a minimum wage job shouldn't have to live in Kent or Islington. Well, it's you morons who are making it so damn expensive here. The stupidity, the lack of economic awareness. You know what, guys? I'm going to give permission to everybody, okay? This is a new thing for the show. I thought I was clear about this before. I'm giving this to all of you. If you don't understand something economically, I will not make fun of you. You call the show and ask, and I will explain it to you. As a man who is 3 credits short of graduating business school, I think I can handle that. I think I can explain to you, but also as a person who's been adulting for a few years, I think I can explain this stuff. Look, sometimes I know you're sitting in the car and going, these economic concepts that Ari's talking about are kind of complicated. I'm not sure I understand. Call in and ask. I will explain them to you. I promise. And I will not make fun of you. We will get there together because an educated voter is what I want, not these stage dum-dums who don't understand that the very thing they're supporting or being paid to support in this video, if they're actors, is the very thing that's making Seattle worse. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including how the Democrats have sued to stop the feds from finding out how many illegals are on Snap while they're claiming there's no illegals on Snap. That plus your calls and texts when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, you're going to want to download the KVI app. Why? Because we are giving away tickets to see an advanced screening of The Running Man with the KVI crew. That's right, me and Mike. I've been talking about how much we need a remake of this movie, but the only way you can enter to win is by downloading the KVI app. So if you don't have it on your phone, go do it right now. If you do have it on your phone, there's a little thing here that says click to enter to win. Make sure you click that, and you will be automatically entered to win tickets to see an advanced screening of The Running Man with me and Mike in theaters. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on, man?
What's going on is you got the great Erna Vernikoff coming up, and I got a couple questions for her I need you to ask for me. The first is, why didn't she run for mayor? She would have been a great candidate for mayor. And she's stood up to anti-Semitism, taken on hard crime, gotten a few bad projects thrown out. The list goes on. The second question is, how is she going to protect herself from Andrew Cuomo and his abuse if he becomes elected mayor? Because
well, she protected herself the first time. She was around when she was there. But Joe, think about this for a second. Aren't you the one always telling me to endorse Bruce Harrell because Katie Wilson's so terrible?
Yes, I am, and I don't know how I would vote because I think they're both awful people.
Okay, so you're in that situation now. You understand. Now you understand the people in New York. Now tell me, somebody like Ina Vernikoff, who's Jewish, by the way, whose family escaped communism, by the way. Which one do you think she's more worried about, Zoran Mamdani or Cuomo?
Mamdani.
Yes. So that's the issue, and that's what I was talking about in the opening segment. Where the problem with Cuomo, aside from the other issues, which we all know, the problem with Cuomo is the fact that he only has the, well, thank God he's not Mamdani going for him. Nobody actually wants Cuomo. They just don't want Mamdani. And I'm not sure that's going to get him over the finish line, and that's what I'm worried about. Joe, make sure you're listening at 4:30. Tune in, and we'll see if we get time to ask those questions for you. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Thanks. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bruce, over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, said, Ari, talking about care, I got an advertisement of that HARD organization's endorsements for tomorrow's election. They support both choices, Democrats, of course, in the 48th District Senate race, Slatter or Whalen. The Jew haters support them both. As for Mamdani, people here don't begin to perceive his true danger because we do not have strong mayors. More of the political power lies with the legislatures and the councils than it does with the chief executives. By the way, excellent point. We still have everything Kshama Sawant got passed. All the taxes, all the minimum wages, we are still dealing with it. And now we have to roll them back, but we don't have anybody actually rolling any of them back. There was a discussion on Bill Maher's show the other night where one of his guests said, hey, you know what? It's good to have a communist elected because every once in a while they will remind you how terrible things are and you can see it for yourself. Yeah, but can we experiment somewhere else? Venezuela, perhaps? Russia? Cuba, these places have not gotten better. So we don't need to experiment in Seattle or New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, and we are still suffering from the failed experiments of the past. For example, Secretary Rawlings, Secretary of Agriculture, she told every state to send them their SNAP data so they could make sure that illegal aliens weren't getting it. Well, 21 Democrat states said, no, we're not sending you the data. If they're not getting it, what do you have to hide? What do you have to hide?
Day one of USDA, February 13th, is we sent letters to every governor in America being very clear that no illegal aliens can use SNAP. 0, 0, 0. We asked every state for the first time in history, and this was in February, to send us their data and let us, with Doge and a war room, actually start going through this data to better understand how this explosion of SNAP benefits happened under Joe Biden. We increased almost 40% on this program in just a couple of years under the Biden administration. Of course, we know they were trying to buy the election, but that's a conversation for another time. And since we have asked for that data, 29 states have complied. Of course, almost all the red states, a couple of couple blue states too. But in that data, and I haven't talked about this yet publicly, in that data we've studied about $100 billion in spend. We have found thousands and thousands of illegal use of the EBT card. We have been moving people off of SNAP. We've got almost 700,000 people, I think, we've moved off just since the president took office. We've arrested about 118 people. So this has been ongoing. But, Rachel, to your point, what this conversation has allowed is a national spotlight on a broken and corrupt program. We found one guy in 6 different states getting a benefit. We found about 5,000 people that are dead who are still getting benefits. Like, it is time to drastically reform this program so that we can make sure that those who are truly needy, truly vulnerable, are getting what they need, and the rest of the corruption goes away and we can serve the American taxpayer.
Who could argue with that? Oh, right. Democrats are arguing with that. They're saying, oh, no, it's impossible. They can't be on it. It's illegal. Well, then turn over the data. You know what? Bureaucracies have bureaucracy. And sometimes you don't know what's going on because the bureaucracies have gotten so big. So fine, let the feds help you out in getting these people off it so you have the money for people who actually need it. How we have so many people on these programs is the problem. And this is how you solve things, by cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. But the Democrats don't want it because they want to keep people on the public dime, because if they are on the public teat, for lack of a better word, they are going to continue to vote for the people who continue to up those benefits. You say they're not voting? Yeah, we've done the motor voter laws before. Lots more to discuss. When we come back, my friends, J.D. Vance wades into the GOP Civil War. And for all of you who are saying I was wrong about J.D. Vance, yep, I'm right as always. I'll tell you what's going on when we come back and why we love J.D. Vance. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Did somebody take over the X algorithm? All I am seeing is stuff from the crazies like Mamdani. That is all I'm seeing, of people who support Mamdani. Now, I know all of you are going to say, Ari, go to the other tab and you'll see the stuff you want. Nope. I am still seeing all the leftist psycho crazy. I thought they all left and went to Blue Sky. Why am I not seeing stuff from people I follow? Why am I not seeing the videos I want to see? It's almost like X has been completely taken over by this democratic socialist insanity. Otherwise, you'd see videos like this one from J.D. Vance in 2024. Because J.D. Vance in 2024 was calling out people like Nick Fuentes. And instead, all I'm seeing in my feed are people supporting Tucker Carlson and people supporting Nick Fuentes and Mamdani and Mamdani and Mamdani and Katie Wilson. How did I get those clips from Katie Wilson land? Because all this stuff is showing up in my feed non-stop. What is going on here? We talk about this GOP civil war distracting all of us from what's going on. Scott Pressler has been working his tail off to flip New Jersey. And unfortunately, all anybody is talking about is not the New Jersey gubernatorial race, but instead what they are talking about is the GOP civil war, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and Mamdani. They're not talking about how the GOP doesn't stand for this insanity. If I wasn't convinced before that this was all a bot war, I am now. This is what Vice President J.D. Vance said to CBS back in 2024 when he was running for office about Nick Fuentes and the far right.
In your own movement, that's what I want to ask about, because one of the supremacists who was saying things like this about your family.
Yeah.
Nick Fuentes, an avowed anti-Semite,
sure,
went after your wife. He had previously dined at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump. Does this have any room in your movement, in the MAGA movement?
Of course it doesn't have any room in the MAGA movement, and of course...
You disavow him and this.
And of course Donald Trump has criticized this person. Look, I think the guy's a total loser. Certainly I disavow him, but if you ask me what I care more about, is it a person attacking me personally, or is it government policy that discriminates based on race? That's what I really worry about.
He's saying all the things he's been saying this whole time, and yet we're not seeing any of them. What is going on social media that all we're seeing is the Mamdani stuff? It's not because I clicked it one time. By clicking all the other stuff, it should have gotten rid of that. Why is this stuff being forced into our social media feeds? The GOP civil war, the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes stuff, the Mamdani stuff. I don't follow these people. And I switched over to the For You tab, guys, and I'm still seeing this junk. Is X just trying to make us fight so they get more interaction, so they get more engagement? Are they paying for more ads? Because I don't see any paid notes on any of this stuff. What is going on here? Because I think it's bots flooding the interwebs, specifically trying to divide everybody and distract from the fact that there are massive wins that the GOP could be having tomorrow. There are massive wins that common sense mainstream Democrats could be having tomorrow. And instead, all we're talking about is the GOP civil war. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's going on, man?
Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Their X and Facebook are right back at the Nazi censorship, and I can tell you that because they've attacked my phone the entire weekend, preventing me from posting posts, preventing me from posting photographs. All weekend I've been fighting this.
Well, I'll tell you something. Let's stay away from the N-word here because, you know, the comparisons there, I'm not going to go there yet. But I will tell you this. My Facebook engagement has been throttled again. And I'm looking at the numbers, and they don't line up with the engagement I normally get. It's like somebody turned off the spigot and said, no, we're not going to let this stuff be seen anymore. Right when it was on its way back up, it happened again. Something is going on where they are pushing this insanity. Appreciate the call, Ron. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, it's been 10 years since the Housing First approach was enacted here in Washington, and nothing's gotten any better. But the Democrats want to double down on that going into this election season. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up later this hour, the 2020 census shows Trump was right about everything, and a New York City council member will be joining us to update us on the state of the Mamdani win or lose for the DSA election. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Dennis in Tacoma. Dennis, what's going on?
Hi, Ari. I hear you speaking about the Republican Civil War. However, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of driving. I haven't had a chance to hear what that is. Could you explain that to me, please?
You are so much better off, Dennis. I'm not sure I want to. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I will. You are so much better off, and this is why you should be listening to my show 3 hours a day, every single day, so you never miss anything, and why you should download the app, of course, so that way you can take it with you. So here's basically the summary. Is that some people like Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, who have kind of jumped the shark recently, are saying what they think is MAGA, what they think isn't MAGA, and what they're saying is, well, if you support Israel, if you support Jews, you don't support the Republican Party. That's basically the summary of what's going on. And they've been attacking Christian Zionists. They've been attacking Christians. They've been attacking anybody who doesn't line up with their weird worldview. And it's starting to fracture the GOP because for some reason people are going, yeah, let's back the guy who got fired from Fox News on the white supremacist against mainstream conservatism that has been conservatism for years. It got worse when the Heritage Foundation weighed in on this and came to defend Tucker Carlson for backing the neo-Nazi. And from there, it's just been all over social media. And today I realized it wasn't social media anymore when somebody who's, shall we just say, is a bit older than me, came through the office and was asking me about it. I was shocked they even know about it because this person doesn't do social media. But the problem is a lot of the political conversation is on social media. So while we're all arguing over whether or not we like Tucker Carlson or whether or not we like anybody else in this matter, we're not focusing on the elections that are happening tomorrow. And to me, I think that's the plan. Is that a short enough, good enough summary for you?
Yes. Well, I'm 70 years old, so I don't do social media enough either. So that's probably where I got out of the loop of the
Dennis, you are so much better off, my man. You probably have time to spend with kids and grandkids. You probably have time to get your honeydew list done faster, some gardening probably, cleaning up the stuff before. You rake in them leaves, right? Probably have time for all that instead of social media.
Oh, I wish, but I commute and I travel to Seattle from Tacoma every day, still working. So
okay, well, make sure you download the KVI app if you got a smartphone. Why? Because then you can win tickets to come see the movie Running Man with me and Mike on November 10th, okay?
I understood. Thank you, Ari.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Paul in Puyallup. Paul, what's going on?
Well, at least you gave my sanity back, Ari, because, you know.
Why is that?
I've liked the Fox News app, and it's not the Fox News app. I don't care what anybody says, because everything on that Fox News app on Instagram is showing Mamdani and Mamdani and Mamdani and Cheryl and Candace and Tucker, and I'm going, what the heck is over? So I've put that off and on, and it's still giving me the same download. And I know Fox is not putting it on. And if they are, I need to go, because I listen to the other ones too, Newsmax and a couple other ones. And it's like the only thing I see on Instagram is everything negative. People
well, I'll tell you what. That's why,
Paul,
I'm going to solve your problem for you. That's why you should follow me on social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter. But also make sure you download the KVI app and you can be entered to win those movie tickets today. But yeah, something is going on with the algorithm where they are boosting all this stuff. And look, the right is guilty of this too. They know anytime they mention AOC, Mamdani, any of this stuff, they're going to get more clicks. So they say, more Mamdani, and that's all we're talking talking about? So then when the word Mamdani is trending on social media, and now my phone is listening to me, and Google's probably going to want to think, I want to hear more about this stuff. So now I just made my life worse by answering your question, Paul. But yes, something is going on here, and it's super, super bad. Paul, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bruce, who messaged me earlier about getting the CARE endorsements in the mail. I am looking at the CARE endorsements that he just sent me, that he got in the mail. Holy cow. While all of us are arguing over the GOP Civil War, there are people wearing keffiyehs in these pictures that they are endorsing for the election. These are the people they are endorsing. Let's do some names here of some people they are endorsing. Let's see. Magically, it's everybody on the Democratic Socialists of America ticket. Shock, shock. Oh, let's see who we got here. Katie Wilson, Emily Alvarado, Jamie Fackler, Zev Cook, Alexis Mercedes Rink, Carmen Rivera. Yeah, of course. They're endorsing all the far left psychopaths. And while we're all arguing over who's right or wrong, Tucker Carlson or Ben Shapiro, whoever it is, they're busy trying to win elections. And we got distracted by the shiny object. What we shouldn't be distracted about are the same policies these people are pushing, are the same ones that got us in this problem in the first place. Change Washington has a great article right now. Friends of the show, sponsors of the show, have a great article out right now about how we just marked the 10-year anniversary of the city of Seattle and King County declaring a homelessness emergency. And here's what they write. On November 2nd, 2015, King County Executive Dow Constantine and Seattle Mayor Ed Murray. Yeah. In hindsight, really the people you want to be listening to on anything, right? Stood before the local media to declare an emergency over the region's homelessness crisis. Two career politicians called for all levels of government, the business community, and nonprofits to join their efforts to stop the increasing number of encampments that were appearing in public spaces, mostly in Seattle. Constantine and Murray, along with dozen like-minded politicians standing behind them, pledged full support to a regional 4-year plan named All Home that they said would eliminate homelessness by the end of the decade. Hang on. It's been exactly 10 years. Is homelessness gone, or is it infinitely worse? Like all housing first-style homelessness policies, it depended on a massive public investment in housing projects and increasing the number of services available to those living on the streets, under bridges, and in parks. All levels of government passed new taxes for more social services and created the King County Regional Homelessness Authority bureaucracy. We know how that turned out, too, don't we? The region's progressive leaders were out to show that a bigger government could solve a serious issue. They promised that the 10,047 people who are homeless in the county would soon be living in public housing while receiving the medical and mental help they needed. Well-funded government programs would eliminate struggling individuals' misfortunes, and shortly, they would be active and productive members of our community. This weekend, according to Change Washington, marks the 10-year anniversary of the emergency proclamation, and thus it seems appropriate to review how the Democrats' bigger government policies have done in meeting their stated goals. Simply stated, for nearly everyone, especially those suffering on the streets, the region's homelessness response has been a colossal failure. Yet has been a success for a small group of Democrat Party bosses and politicians, a few unscrupulous nonprofit leaders, and thousands of government bureaucrats, for it has provided them with a financial windfall. Here are some important facts about the current homelessness strategy. Homelessness in King County has risen 68% from 10,047 in 2015 to 16,858. The homeless population has grown every year since the emergency declaration. Do you think maybe you're feeding the problem? Let's Go Washington had a great, Future 42 had a great cartoon out the other day. It's a fire showing all these crises, and the fireman goes, let me solve it with progressive policies. And it turns out he's actually spraying it with gasoline, which are the progressive policies. Seattle King County has become a magnet for attracting America's homeless. A recent Discovery Institute survey found that only 19.8% of those experiencing homelessness in King County attended high school here. They are attracted to the region due to the 5,000 services provided to them, lax laws regarding drug use, and encampments. Let's not forget Bruce Harrell even supported these numbers with Seattle's numbers, saying that over 70% of the people who are here who are homeless are not from Seattle. That's the conservative figure. The Discovery Institute has it at 80%. But let's go with Bruce's numbers now, just for the sake of argument. Led by King County, Washington State has the highest number of chronically homeless people in the country. That's not the county, the country. Both King County's All Home Project and King County Regional Homeless Authority's Partnership for Zero to eliminate homelessness downtown were expensive, failed projects that wasted resources and failed to remove homeless individuals from the street. I can attest to this by driving downtown last night and almost hitting a bunch of them with my car because they were wandering in the middle of the street. Yeah. The King County Regional Homeless Authority was created in 2019, has been embroiled in numerous controversies, and is responsible for many policy failures. Its first CEO, Mark Dones, was fired because he was costing a ton of money and accomplishing absolutely nothing. King County Regional Homeless Authority's dysfunctional reputation is so severe that after a national search, only one person, a career bureaucrat, was willing to even interview for the CEO position. In 2015, King County said that it spent $36 million on the homeless issue. In late 2024, County Executive Constantine refused to even estimate how much he annually authorized to be spent on the issue. King County's Housing for Health program spent nearly $500 million to buy and refurbish approximately 1,600 hotel units in 15 former hotels across the county to warehouse homeless individuals. A majority of those residents in low barrier facilities suffer from active drug addiction and untreated mental illness. So you put all these people unsupervised in hotel rooms with 3 hots and a cot every single night, and what did you get? Crime where those hotels are. So much so a lot of them had to be shut down, and a bunch of them had to be dealt with drug remediation, meth remediation, fentanyl remediation from the properties because the properties were so contaminated with drugs afterwards. According to Change Washington, poor management and lack of accountability have resulted in an environment where an audit revealed that a massive fraud has likely taken place with the distribution of $1.8 billion in annual grants from King County Department of Community and Home and Human Services. A Discovery Institute study found that the King County Regional Homeless Authority paid 17 organizations more than $1 million to provide emergency housing. Only 5 submitted reports about what they did with the money. A new report from the Capital Research Group details how violent extremist groups like Antifa have infiltrated local homeless organizations and become recipients of taxpayer money that is meant to help those that are homeless. Nice job, everybody. Really, just well done. Well done. Our friend Brandy Cruz revealed last week how some nonprofits were denying housing funds to legitimate low-income or minority recipients. Instead, the funds were given to friends and relatives. So after 10 years and billions of dollars, what has been accomplished? Nothing. The problem has only gotten worse. And now, just watch. In the upcoming legislative session, Democrats are going to claim, we need more money. If you just give us more money, we'll fix all this. Just give us more money. You want proof that doesn't work? Washington State said it wanted to improve its academic standards. So it poured in a ton of cash. We used to be one of the top public school areas in the country. Now, we are one of the lowest. Places like Mississippi that didn't spend any money on it have passed us, not just because we suck so bad, but because they found ways to do it without spending any money. If money was the solution, things would have gone better by now. They've poured billions of dollars into this program. So let's start with mismanagement. Of course, that's part of it. When you fund in all that money and now somehow Antifa is getting your homeless money, you have a serious mismanagement problem. We have covered scandal after scandal after scandal of the Regional Homeless Authority where they're paying people 6 figures. Sometimes they're paying them 6 figures from multiple agencies, which means they're getting 7 figures a year to deal with homelessness. And what's their incentive to ever end it? If they end homelessness, then the gravy train is over for their salaries. Then their organizations don't continue to get money because then people will say, well, there's less homeless people, so let's cut back your funding. They have incentivized it to get worse and worse and worse, and that is exactly what has happened. When you have a 68% increase in something you said you were going to eradicate by the end of the decade, you have failed. If JFK said, we go to the moon and we plan on doing it by the end of the decade, I want to set a man on the moon by the end of the decade, and you didn't do it, then guess what? You would have failed. We did it a lot after that. But here, what do they say? We want to eradicate homelessness by 2025. Hang on. Somebody got a calendar around? I mean, this thing's getting old and expired pretty soon. But yes, we're at the end of 2025, and things have only gotten worse. Infinitely worse. Who are the people in charge of that? Bruce Harrell. A lot of the people on the Seattle City Council. That's not an endorsement of Katie Wilson because the very policies she's pushing are not that different from Bruce Harrell's. She wants to double down on the failed housing first model, which means things around here are only going to get worse. Robin Lakewood texts in, Dems made a lot of money for Comrade Homeless Industrial Complex. That's why we call it the Homeless Industrial Complex. David from Edgewood texts in, he says, are illegal aliens living with the homeless, or is it U.S. citizens who are living homeless? Well, it's a combination of both. I've seen both on the streets. I've seen both. This is exactly what I've seen on the streets. The majority of people I see on the streets are the drug addict types, not the illegal alien types. But you know that some of those hotels they bought for the homeless who are still on the streets were then used for illegal aliens and refugees. Why it became Washington's problem as opposed to a countrywide problem when Joe Biden decided to abandon Afghanistan, beyond me. But Dow Constantine took some of those hotels that were supposed to be used for our own homegrown homeless drug addicts, mental health problems right here in America, and said, let's house the refugee types instead. Have you noticed that some of the people asking for money near your local Starbucks or on the side of the highway look like they didn't really come from this country? That's what you're seeing. Congratulations, guys. You have incentivized homelessness to the extreme that it has gone up 68%. That's somewhere between 70 and 80% of the people who are homeless in our area are not even from here. And mind you, that was probably the case when they declared homelessness an emergency back in 2015. But they figured out a grift. They figured out they could say, if you give us more money, if you vote for these higher taxes, we'll solve your problem. And they've been able to say that the last 10 years in every election cycle without anybody calling them on it at all. Where's our local media? Why is it Change Washington are the ones who are doing this report, not the Project Homeless over at the Seattle Times? That's your job. That's what you have a grant for. This would have been a great article to see in the Seattle Times. Instead, we have puff pieces about how there's no difference between Wilson and Bruce Harrell, and how they endorse Bruce Harrell, but Katie Wilson's pretty good too. That's what you're getting out of our local media. Any of the TV stations doing this? Any of them doing the investigation? Hey, it's been 10 years since this. Anybody doing it? They probably will now that Change Washington did all the work for them and put it into one article. Our media is non-existent because otherwise they would have noticed this and they would have been doing the reporting, and I would have been quoting them as opposed to Change Washington. But we don't have a media here. Instead, it's just, well, election's coming up, and I guess we're just going to end up with more of the same. This is one of the reasons why nobody trusts local media. This is one of the reasons why our show is growing. Not that I'm complaining about that. But what I am complaining about is so many people are still watching those mainstream news outlets, expecting they're getting the news, and all they hear about is, oh, everything's peaches and cream, except there was a shooting the other day. And nobody puts the dots together for you of what's causing it. We had a candidate who called me to talk about the issues of the campaign, came doorbelling at my door. And I've since asked him to come on the show. Nothing, nada, zip. Want to have an off-record conversation, which is why I'm not saying this person's name. But I will say the following, is that when they were talking about gun violence being their big issue, and I said, great, so are you going to deal with the gang violence? Are you going to deal with the drugs that the gangs are selling? Are you going to deal with the human trafficking that the gangs are doing? Are you going to deal with the illegal guns that the gangs are running? Because if so, then you want ICE. Then you want the FBI. Then you want the feds here. And the conversation got very, very awkward all of a sudden because they don't want to admit it's not the gun that's shooting itself. It's the gang problem we have here. And all this is tied to the homeless industrial complex. All this is all tied together, and the average voter doesn't see that. The average voter isn't paying attention. Because if the average voter was paying attention, they would go, wait a second, all these people moved during COVID. And if all these people moved during COVID, why do these blue states still have so many more congressional reps than the red states? When we come back, my friends, we will discuss how even CNN is now calling out the census. What can we expect for Election Day when the census was all messed up? We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Back by popular demand, my friends, are our contests. And here's how you win tickets to go see The Running Man with me and Mike on November 10th. Make sure you download the KVI app. On the KVI app, you'll have the chance to enter to win. This contest is only on the app. If you have the KVI app, open it up, and it'll have this little thing which you click which says enter to win. and you can go see The Running Man starring Glenn Powell at Pacific Place with me and Mike on November 10th. Should be a lot of fun because going to a movie with Mike is half the fun itself. Now Mike's like looking confused. What did I mess up there?
When's the movie come out?
The movie comes out. Screening. The screening's on November 10th. You're right. That's what I missed. It is coming out on November 14th.
There you go.
You get to see an advanced screening of The Running Man.
Cool. So I have to rewrite all that copy for you because you're not reading any of that right. It's fine. It's
okay,
fine.
That's fine.
Come see the movie with
Hoffman
us.
only reads
download
what's
the
on
app
the
and
teleprompter.
you have to download the application on your telephone for your telephone app so you can listen to the radio on your telephone and enter our contest and come see the movies with us.
Exactly right. And for those of you who complain about an AM signal, my friends, you can pick it up easier on the app. So make sure you download the KVI app, click enter the contest right there, click to enter to win, and you can go see The Running Man before it comes out in theaters. The Running Man is in theaters, Dolby Cinema 4DX, premium large format, and IMAX on November 14th. Now, we've all talked about the problems with the census. We know that California and New York should have lost a lot more of their congressional seats because of how many people fled to Texas and fled to Florida. We know they should have lost more congressional seats, and yet somehow they didn't. Even CNN is finally acknowledging it. This is CNN.
One of the big things is it helps decide congressional maps.
Right.
Does this have everything to do with redistricting?
Well, it does. In fact, we know the 2020 census, the errors were almost always to the detriment of red states. Blue states like Rhode Island.
Do we know that?
We do know that. The Census Bureau's own audit of its work has proven that. Blue states like Rhode Island were overcounted. Rhode Island then didn't lose a seat. Red states like Alabama were undercounted. Listen, this is just a fact. It wasn't all red-blue, but it was disproportionately red-blue.
Wait a second. I thought you told me that was a conspiracy theory. I will say this, my friends. There's a little bit of blame to go around about this for everybody who was president in 2020. And that administration was in charge of the census. So this is something, if you want to be mad, Democrats know if your enemy's making mistakes, don't interrupt them. And apparently, the first Trump administration was not focusing as best as it should on the census, which led to this problem. This is an issue, my friends. And whoever in the Trump administration was in charge of the census should be called out for it. So it turns out President Trump was right about things he said in the past, need I remind you.
This Bureau to redo the census to actually get an account of how many Americans with proof of citizenship are in our area, in our country, redistricting some of the House districts. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll speak for both of us. We love it. Okay, you're going to like this one. I know all about it. We want to bring our elections back. The election in 2020 was rigged, millions and millions of votes. It had to do with COVID and a lot of things, but it really had to do with the crooked people. The Democrats are very good at cheating on elections. And that's why I said too big to rig. They tried this one too. But after about 9:02, they gave up too many votes. Too big to rig. Ron would love it. I would love it. Christie would love it. That's what they have to do. They have to bring it back. And we have to look. Ron, they include anybody that happens to be in your state.
Well, California would lose like 5 seats if they did a fair census. And even beyond that, the Biden census gypped Florida of at least 1 seat. We only got 1 seat in the last census. Are you trying to tell me that Florida only had 1 seat in that? We should have had at least 2. Texas should have had another one. That could be the difference in the House of Representatives and the majority. So I would love for them to redo the census for 26. My legislature will redistrict those lines. We'll get it to where it's fair. But as it's right now, this country is not fairly apportioned. I've got so many more millions of people in Florida that have...
Exactly. Now, we have a new problem. When you redo it now, the Trump administration is working on getting rid of all the illegals, but they ain't gone yet. So, are they going to be counted? Well, it depends on who's running the census. So the census is done once every 10 years. Which means who's going to be doing the census next time? So, the last one was done in 2020. That means the next one's going to be done in 2030. That means whoever wins the election in 2028 is going to be in charge of doing the census. Do you now understand that elections have consequences? Oh, here's another one, fun one for you. So you know how we were all calling out Karine Jean-Pierre nonstop during the election for just saying whatever was put in front of her, like radio hosts who don't read the copy that their producers give them for movies? So Karine Jean-Pierre Karine Jean-Pierre was asked by the House Oversight Committee about who actually came up with these terms, cheap fake, deep fake, all this. Did you even know what you were talking about? Give a listen to this collection of her answers.
When you use the term cheap fakes, was that choice of words in the moment, or was that something that had been prepared ahead of time as a talking point?
It was prepared.
Did you or did anyone ever verify if the videos you were talking about were, in fact, cheap fakes?
I believe so.
What is a cheap fake? I really don't know.
It was something that we did not coin. It was something that the media coined. They did the work. They did the legwork on coming up with that terminology, and so we were just elevating essentially what the media was saying.
Hang on. So you're admitting that you guys didn't think they were fake, but since the media was saying it, we'll lie and just feed into that and call it that. So you basically admit that you were cribbing all your notes off Twitter? Off Facebook? From leftists? You guys even weren't even doing your own homework. You're admitting to cheating on your homework? Unbelievable. Yet so much not.
The press was saying.
But do you know what it is?
I mean, it basically is laid out with how you defined it with what President Biden was actually doing, and it took away from what he was actually doing or created an illusion of something that just did not exist.
Were all clips circulated on social media or otherwise showing President Biden being confused or freezing at times, were those all fakes?
I can't speak to everything that was on social media.
Sure, but there were instances where videos were circulated of President Biden appearing confused or freezing for a moment that were real, correct?
Not that I recall. What we were trying to lift up was something that was very, very clear that what they were showing was not actually what was happening.
Are you kidding me with this? You just admitted you were lying before. Why should anybody trust you now? Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. We switch the focus over to New York. Ina Vernikov, council member from New York, will be joining us to weigh in on the Mamdani race. Are the polls tightening? What's actually happening at the polls? What's happening with the lines? We'll find out that, plus so much more when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, as much as we are worried about what's going to happen in the Seattle mayoral race, it looks like the eyes of the U.S. are not actually looking at Seattle. They're looking at what's going on in New York. Joining us now to discuss, council member on the New York City Council, Councilwoman Ina Vernikov. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. So we get conflicting reports from the other side of the country. I was just in New York last week, and I've never seen such a mobilization. I mean, I heard the rabbi of the synagogue I was in last week talking about everybody go voting. What's it like in New York right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have never seen turnout like we're seeing now. I can speak for my district. The poll sites in my district during early voting were extremely packed, people standing in lines for hours to vote. Yesterday, I was at one of our busiest poll sites, and the line was out the door. People told us they stood in for hours in the line, and the supervisors told us that that this is larger than presidential election. So the turnout's been massive, really massive, unlike anything we've seen before.
Do you think it's part of the problem is that the candidates are who the candidates are? Whereas there's not really that many people for the Republicans to get excited about. There's not really that many people for the moderates to get excited about. But what they are getting worried about is Mamdani. And they're saying, we got to do anything to stop this guy. We don't care who we put in office aside from him.
Yeah, I think there's a mix. I think there's a lot of excitement from the Mamdani voters. And then I think there's a lot of fear from the anti-Mamdani vote. And I think that's moderate Democrats, independents, Republicans. So it's fear and excitement, and I am hoping that the fear vote is going to take over here, because I don't think there's much excitement for Cuomo here. I think he's got a lot of unfavorables, but because Mamdani's on the ticket, the fear of Mamdani administration, I think it scares the living hell out of people. And so they're coming out to vote in droves against Mamdani. At the same time, there's all this excitement to come out to vote for Mamdani. We saw very long lines in North Brooklyn, which is part of the commie, we call it the commie corridor. So that's all Mamdani voters. When you look at the demographics of who's voting, it's the younger voters that are definitely mostly going for Mamdani. On the other hand, I know, for example, in the Upper East Side, it's Cuomo country. And because there's a lot of Jewish New Yorkers in the Upper East Side, the younger voters are voting for Mamdani. So it's a big mess.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Now, we know that the Jewish community is turning out in droves to vote against Mamdani, including parts of that community that never show up to voting. And now they're telling people, get buses, do whatever it takes to go vote. You're seeing a lot of rabbis step up, and they don't normally do this kind of stuff. What other communities are stepping up because they're so worried about Mamdani getting elected that don't traditionally show up to the polls?
I mean, what we're seeing here, I represent a large Jewish district, probably the largest Jewish district in New York City. So like you said, we're seeing a lot of Jews, Orthodox, secular Jews. Everybody's really petrified. Also, Jews from the former Soviet Union. As you know, I'm a Republican, and I endorsed Cuomo in the race. I did something very out of the box and different, kind of created some shockwaves. And you know, when I was doing the press conference with Andrew Cuomo, I said that I represent a community that, not all of them, but a large number of my constituents are those who came from the former Soviet Union, and they escaped communism and socialism and anti-Semitism, which is exactly what Mamdani is bringing to the plate here. And so they are willing to do anything just to make sure we don't get Mamdani, even if it means voting for somebody who has not been liked at all in our community, which is Andrew Cuomo.
There's something I'm concerned about, and we're talking with council member Ina Vernikov from New York City about the upcoming election. What I'm concerned about is I looked at the election results of New York State the last time there was a big election. That was Lee Zeldin versus Kathy Hochul. And you had COVID right before that, and you had something like 400,000 people move out of New York and down to Florida or wherever else. And therefore, you had Zeldin lose by around that much. And I'm worried that if we see another mass exodus out of New York City because Mamdani gets elected, then basically Republicans are surrendering New York City. And I'm worried about us ever winning anything there again, the same way that Republicans have kind of given up on Seattle and King County, which Seattle is in.
Yeah, so if God forbid Mamdani should win, I'm going to be encouraging Republicans to stay in New York because we have a governor's race coming up. And I think that we can win that race, especially if Mamdani is the mayor. And I'm going to be working my butt off to make sure that if it's Elise Stefanik, she's supposed to announce right after the mayoral election that she wins. And I think that there is a pathway for her to win governor. And I think that we can change a lot if she's governor. And that's basically the hope. I'm gonna be if that's the case, Mamdani ends up winning. I'm gonna be rallying New Yorkers, especially conservatives, to stay.
Just before we let you go, with Elise Stefanik running, that's somebody who people are excited about. You look at somebody like Kathy Hochul, who just bent the knee to Mamdani and said, I'm going to do whatever this guy does, along with the Democratic Party. Do you think the entire Democratic Party has shifted? Because I think the only reason Chuck Schumer hasn't endorsed Mamdani is because if he does that, there's nothing to stop AOC from challenging him. He's trying to remain the moderate wing, but you see Hakeem Jeffries endorsing Mamdani. You see Hochul endorsing Mamdani. Do you think this is the new Democrat Party in places like New York, where it's the Mamdani Party, the Democrat Socialist Party, not the Democrat Party anymore?
Yeah, I do. I think that, when Hakeem Jeffries endorsed Mamdani, I think that was pretty much it. That kind of set in stone that the Democratic Party is now the Democratic Party of Zohar Mamdani. It is now not the Democratic Party anymore. It is the Democrat Socialist of America, which is AKA communist. And I think that and I think Democrats know this is going to create a lot of trouble for them because Republicans are going to use this across the state and across the country. And we're going to win a lot of seats because Zohar Mamdani is now the Democratic Party. This Hamas supporting, refusing to condemn, globalize the Intifada, wants to defund the police, no jails, wants to abolish private property, try to pass legislation that would punish Jewish businesses and synagogues for supporting Israel. And there's so much more. So I think that this is a win, in a way, a win for Republicans.
Councilwoman Ina Vernikov, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your insight into what's going on in New York. And thank you so much for fighting for traditional American, Republican, conservative values, even in a place like New York. We know what that fight's like here in Seattle. Really appreciate you doing that on behalf of all of us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My wife, when I suggested to her that we go see Back to the Future for its 40th anniversary, which was re-released in IMAX over the weekend, said, "Didn't we just see it?" And I said, "Yes, sweetie, we did. At the 30th anniversary 10 years ago when it was upgraded to HD. Well, I wasn't the only one who went to see it. Mr. KVI himself, Kevin, also went to see it this weekend. Kevin, I looked at it and I thought it looked really much better than the HD version they did a couple of years ago. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think, was that when we went and saw it during the pandemic?
Oh, that's even funnier. Okay, let me back up a second. During the pandemic, AMC was doing this thing where, because people couldn't go see movies, they were releasing old movies for small groups of the people in your bubble, which we don't need to get into that right now. But I remember I took Mike and his wife and you and your wife and my kids and some of their friends because we were all bubbling together or whatever, and we went to see Back to the Future. And I think that was the HD version because you could see the makeup issues in that one.
It looked really good. Yeah, I thought it looked good. So that was the last time I saw it in the theater.
Sure.
And I don't know, obviously I'm not in film into it. Like, I don't know if that's a 35 millimeter print or you're watching a digital file or whatever it is anymore. I don't know. But I thought it looked pretty good back then. And then, of course, you saw it in IMAX. I saw it in IMAX as well. Obviously, they did some things because that's a massive screen. They couldn't just... And so there are some touch-ups done on it, but I thought it looked pretty good.
I thought it looked great because the last time you could really see how they aged the actors and the makeup. The makeup stood out. The old Biff, the old parents, everything, it didn't look right. They fixed that this time, but what I thought was funny was some things looked worse. So, for example, Marty's hand disappearing in front of you.
Yeah.
That looked bad when it first came out, when he's erasing from existence. That looked worse now. I will say the other thing I noticed was the stunt drivers. You could tell that is not a dog in the front seat of that car in the opening of the movie.
Yeah. And even Biff, when he's driving the car going after Marty or whatever, when he runs into the manure, I'm like, that's not that accurate.
That's not Tom F. Wilson in that thing. Yeah. It's not him. There's a few other things I noticed also this time. So because the makeup looked good and I couldn't make fun of that, what's also funny is on the ground when Marty's skateboarding, you can see the chalk marks from each time the skateboard hit the ground in previous takes. That you noticed as well. And you can also tell when it's not Marty driving that time machine. That you can see a little bit more. I noticed that. There's one thing I did notice that was kind of funny, which was actually to the credit of Crispin Glover. Yes, the actor who played George McFly. You know the scene when Marty McFly is playing Johnny Be Good? And he does all the Van Halen and the Who moves and all that at the end, right? And they're all looking at him oddly because why would you do something like that? George McFly is standing there with an idiot grin on his face in the back, which I thought was hysterical. That's even funnier when you notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Oh, okay. I noticed that. There's a few other things I noticed in the background. It seems like the producers were really obsessed with X-rated movies in the 1980s because it's all the signs.
Yes. Like when they come back to Hill Valley, especially, it's like all they have is like X-rated movie theaters down there and bookstores. Like, what's going on?
Right, in Hill Valley, which is like this little suburban town, but apparently they really like their porn in Hill Valley in the 1980s. That's everywhere. Though I will say, Kevin, I thought the movie really holds up.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And even my younger brother I went with, he didn't see it in the theater because he was too young when it first came out. And so that's why he wanted to go see it. He was like, never saw it in the theater before. And every time I get done with that movie, it's like it holds up. It just runs at a good clip. It's fun, and it holds up.
It does. Also, Mike pointed this out last time when we all went to see it together. My daughter, that was her first time seeing it when we all went to see that. And she was laughing at all the laugh spots, and she was reacting at cheering at all the cheer spots. Well, Mike, this is going to be kind of funny for you. We're in the theater, and we see some people brought their kids. And clearly it's the first time these kids have seen the movie. And my favorite part is the stuff between Marty and his mom in the car. And a kid in the theater, this little like 6-year-old kid or something like that, goes, as soon as she kisses him, "Ew, disgusting!" The whole theater starts cracking up. Was there something like that?
Yeah, there was a
theater?
kid who was probably like 10 or 12, a few rows down from us, and that whole scene was like, really got interactions from that group. It was really funny.
I'll say the movie really holds up. And even my wife, who's seen the movie now at least 3 times in theaters with me, if not more at this point, said she starts looking away during the clock tower scene. And I said, what are you doing, babe? And she's like, it makes me all nervous. I don't know. I'm like, you know what happens. He's going to get back. She goes, I don't know. The musical, he didn't get back. That time machine broke down. Marty didn't make it back to the future in that musical. But yes, it still grips you, the music, the everything. Final thoughts, Ken.
I always forget at that end, too, when he's ramping up and trying to hit that with the lightning and all that stuff. And he's that's like that. It's like that never-ending runway at the end of that Fast and Furious. It just keeps going.
It does. It does. Actually, I want to do a little experiment. I want to do the beginning of the movie where he says he sent Einstein 1 minute back.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than 1 minute. They're talking there, those two of them. Yeah. But anyway, Back to the Future in IMAX was great. And if you're worried because you missed out on seeing Back to the Future in IMAX, it is being released for home viewing with this upgraded format. So if you missed out on the screenings this weekend, it is being released for purchase for the stuff at your house.
Number 6 at the box office this weekend. Number 6.
Well, there's nothing else out, man. What else are you going to go see this weekend? Just a reminder, by the way, if you want to go see a movie in theaters, make sure you download the KVI app because you can go with me, Big Mike, and Zach from The Morning Ride to go see Paramount's an advanced screening of The Running Man at Pacific Place on November 10th. The movie doesn't come out till November 14th. It's starring Glenn Powell. You go on your app, you download the KVI app right now. You'll get a chance to enter to win. Make sure you download in the Apple or Android stores. The Running Man is in theaters, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, Premium Large Format, and IMAX on November 14th, so you get to see the movie 4 days early with the KVI crew. Make sure you download the KVI app right now, and you have chances to win all week long. So make sure you do that right now. Mr. KVI himself, thank you very much for joining us today. Do appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including Final Hour Free for All. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, BLM may be afraid of the Trump administration because it looks like they're pulling a boiler room and shredding all their documents. But before we get to this, on our Back to the Future segment, we got a text, guys, from Rob in Lakewood, who says that the Twin Pines Mall location is going to be demolished and replaced by apartments. Is that true? I hadn't heard that. Do you think the sign's available? I know they keep it on display in the mall. Do you think they're selling that sucker, or is it going to be the Twin Pines housing development?
Well, it's the Lone Pine Mall now.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. But I know the sign's in there.
Bastards.
You see this conspiracy theory with 9/11, Back to the Future predicted 9/11? I go, shut up, it did not. It's like, oh, there were two, and then there's one. Oh, like, that's a reach, guys, because now there's none. So don't give me that nonsense. That's
No
crazy.
Pine Mall.
Oh, no. Oh, we're at the point
Now
where
they
we're
called
telling
it the Freedom Pine Mall.
That's very good. So they're tearing that whole sucker down. Hey, by the way, you want to solve the housing crisis? Maybe let's start tearing down as many empty malls as there are. Oh, some mall developers are going to get mad at me. Like down at Pacific Place downtown, where there's like basically a Johnny
Where
Rockets
you can
and
go
AMC.
and see the movie with
Where,
us if you
by the way?
download our telephone application on your telephone so you can listen to your radio on the telephone and enter our contest to see an advanced screening of The Running Man.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Mike. That's right. Download the app, and you can enter to win to see an advanced screening of The Running Man with me, Mike, and young Zach on November 10th, 4 days before it comes out in theaters. And I'm one of those people who have been saying, hey, let's remake The Running Man. So let's see what they did with this thing, or will I regret my words? Anyway, Rob, thanks for that little piece of trivia. Do appreciate it. Speaking of malls and shopping, according to the Post-Millennial, a suspected MS-13 gang member from El Salvador was arrested late last month after getting stuck on the sign of a Houston area business while trying to run from federal immigration officers. According to ICE, the man was identified as 29-year-old Marlon Odir Gomez Hernandez, an illegal alien who had previously been arrested in El Salvador for aggravated extortion, alongside 6 other suspected MS-13 gang members. Authorities said Gomez was spotted during a targeted enforcement operation on October 27th in the Houston area. When officers approached, he allegedly took off running, ducking into a laundromat and climbing through ceiling tiles to access the roof. From there, he tried to scale down the building, but became stranded on the business's large outdoor sign. ICE officers eventually brought him down safely. Gomez was taken into custody and transferred to the Montgomery Processing Center in Conroe, where he remains pending the outcome of his immigration case. There's no accounting for stupid criminals, my friends. Don't go out on the ledge. Haven't you ever seen a horror movie, dude? Brett Bradford, ICE's Houston field office director, said once again an illegal alien put the local community in danger by recklessly fleeing from ICE officers who are simply enforcing immigration laws that have been on the books for decades. Unfortunately, this has become a daily occurrence for our officers in the Houston area, thanks to the violent rhetoric being spewed by elected officials encouraging illegal aliens to resist enforcement of the same laws they established. The incident comes amid a broader ICE crackdown in Texas on violent criminal aliens and gang members. Since the start of President Donald Trump's administration, ICE of Houston says it has arrested 356 illegal immigrant gang members, including MS-13 members in the area. Collectively, those arrests had entered the U.S. illegally over 1,400 times. So 356 people entered the U.S. over 1,400 times. That means each of them came in at least twice, if not 3 or 4 times, and racked up 1,685 criminal convictions ranging from child sexual abuse to arson, theft, and murder. ICE officials said the operations are part of an ongoing federal initiative to remove what the agency calls the worst of the worst, focusing on criminal aliens, gang affiliates, and repeat offenders. Gabriel Martinez, acting field office director for ICE Houston, said despite attempts by some to undermine the courageous work being done by our officers, the brave men and women of ICE continue to put their lives on the line every single day to arrest violent transnational gang members, foreign fugitives, and dangerous criminal aliens. So you should be asking yourself why cities like Portland don't want this happening. They trying to virtue signal to the left. They want them for the voting. What exactly is going on here? Well, Turns out in Portland, they're doing more than just letting these people stay on the streets or not cooperating with federal officials. They're now actively refusing to help quell riots outside the ICE facility in Oregon. Now, we know this has been going on, but now they've actually admitted to it. According to Katie Davis Court, writing for the Post-Millennial, on day 2 of the federal trial, Oregon v. Trump, officials from the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Services testified in support of deploying the National Guard to the ICE facility in Portland. The witnesses testifying on behalf of the Department of Justice painted a picture of persistent attacks on federal property and personnel since June while criticizing the Portland Police Bureau for repeatedly failing to police the area during critical moments. You want an example? Would you like to know what happened last night? This didn't get a lot of media attention. I saw it from Nick Sorter's social media account. He's down at the ICE facility right now. He reported that power was out in the area. Somebody had cut the power to the area. Now, what's fascinating about this is the ICE facility still had power because they have generators. But what this fool, whoever cut the power, what they did was they cut it to the low-income housing nearby and all the apartments nearby, as if the people over there didn't have enough problems. Now they got to worry about their power being out too. So they can't sleep at night because of these ongoing insanity outside there. Now they're losing power also. This case is challenging the legality of deploying National Guard troops to quell protests outside the ICE building, which has been under siege by protesters, many of which have been involved with Antifa since June 7th. According to Katie Davis Court, Oregon officials representing both the state and the city argue that a surge of federal troops amounts to government overreach and would likely inflame tensions. Great, so why don't you guys do your jobs? Why don't you guys do your jobs? You know, at least Gavin Newsom was smart enough to say, hey, you know, I don't want the feds here, so you California Highway Patrol guys, can you get that guy Paunch? Can you get Paunch? Get Paunch, bring him out here, and they'll police everything. And then we don't have to bring in the feds, and we can say everything's A-okay. Portland's not even smart enough to do that. Oregon's not even smart to do that. The DOJ contends the move is necessary to protect federal assets amid a sustained attack on the facility, exacerbated by minimal to no support from local law enforcement, which is exactly what is going on. The defense's first witness, DHS, FPS Deputy Regional Director for Region 10, identified only as RC because these guys like going after them personally, took the stand Thursday morning. As a recurring incident commander of the ICE site since June, RC described a chaotic environment that he believes requires at least 180 officers for adequate protection. At least 200 Oregon National Guardsmen have been federalized under President Trump's orders, which RC welcomes as support. Here's something fascinating. They didn't federalize 1,000 members of it. ICE asked for 180 officers from the Portland Police Bureau, which has been defunded and downscaled even more than Seattle's had. Maybe they don't have 180 officers. So you know what they should have done? Gone to the governor and said, can you give us 180 officers? Instead of saying, oh, we give up. Just throw your hands up in the air. We give up. Trump didn't send in a militia of or a huge garrison of 1,000 guys. He sent in exactly what they asked for. He gave them a few extras in case they get injured. That is normal. That is standard. He sent in 200 guys, not 1,000, not 1,500. He sent in what they asked for. The incident commander said National Guard troops would alleviate the strain on resources across all federal agencies currently deployed to the facility, such as the ICE Special Response Team, Custom and Border Protection, Border Patrol, Bureau of Prisons, and others. He explained that the deployed officers called in to assist would be able to leave the site and go back to performing their normal job functions, which involve apprehending some of the worst individuals unlawfully in this country. You know, I have yet to have any Democrats who support this nonsense, because they don't all support this nonsense, by the way. I have yet to have a Democrat who supports this nonsense give me a cogent, coherent argument of why you should keep the illegal alien criminals in the country, aside from, well, here's what they say every time, Mike. You know this one? This is good, because somebody in our area says this too. You're just going after the brown people. That is neither clear nor cogent nor coherent. Instead, that is just, you're racist. All your Republicans are racists. Well, guess what? I have a lot of friends who don't look like me. They are not afraid of getting deported. One, they haven't committed any crimes that I know about. And two, they're in this country legally. You know how you don't get in trouble with the law? Don't break the law. It shouldn't be that hard. You don't want to get in trouble with the law. Don't break the law. Wow, that's really a toughie. RC recounted protesters hurling vile, racist, and other harmful rhetoric at agents around the clock, with rotation shortened from 30 to 20 days to address officer burnout and mental health concerns. You know, Mike, there's something that didn't get enough play during the riots in 2020. And actually, I blame myself because I was covering the riots in 2020. You know what didn't get enough play? How many officers were getting injured and then sent back to the battlefield, because that's what it was in 2020. And I remember I did one story on this, and I should have done a lot more on this. I'm doing this from memory, so I don't think my numbers are correct. But let's say it was something like there had been 1,400 injuries, but it only affected the same 400 or 500 officers, which means these officers were getting injured again and again and again by the same people. It was happening with the regularity. It's insane. So what was the result of all this? Well, a federal judge decided to side with Portland and Oregon and block the Trump administration. U.S. District Court Judge Karen J. Immergut ruled Sunday, that President Donald Trump likely lacked the authority to federalize the National Guard and surge troops to protect the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Portland. Judge Immergut, that's an unfortunate last name, appointed by Trump, extended the preliminary injunction, deciding that the president would likely not meet the merits to federalize the National Guard under Title 10, Section 12406, which permits federalization under certain circumstances, such as invasion, rebellion, or when federal laws cannot be executed. Time out. I want to ask the KVI audience what you think, and I want you to call or text with your answers at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have a literal terrorist organization in Antifa, which is openly defying federal law and federal officers. Is that not a rebellion? Is that not when federal laws cannot be executed because they need more help, they need more men? How about the invasion? You literally had 10 million illegal aliens brought into this country under Joe Biden. Now, some of you may argue, and I actually think this is the weakest part of the case, some of you may argue that's not an invasion. Joe Biden invited them here. They're guests. Unfortunately, you may not be wrong about that one. But regarding rebellion or when federal laws cannot be executed, that's literally, you have them on that. I don't understand this ruling at all. A final decision on the injunction will be made on November 7th. So we only have to wait 4 more days before getting that ruling. And guaranteed, my friends, this is going to the Supreme Court. It may have to wait a little while, but it is going to the Supreme Court. The judge wrote in her order that the court determines, based on the trial testimony and the exhibits it has reviewed so far, that the plaintiffs are entitled to a preliminary injunction on their claims that defends federalization and deployment of the National Guard to Oregon violates 10 Section 12406 of the 10th Amendment. Time out. This is interesting here. You're just getting a temporary injunction. This judge may rule down the road 4 days from now that, yes, they had standing, and yes, they were allowed to do this, and yes, they should have done this. The state of Oregon and the city of Portland, the plaintiffs in the case of Oregon v. Trump, argue that the move constitutes an unlawful overreach into local affairs and claim the Trump administration could continue mobilizing personnel from other federal agencies to assist in the protection of the ICE facility instead of deploying the National Guard. Now, the problem is you have so many organizations that were so defunded, I'm not sure that's the case. The National Guard at least seems to be up to the task. This is what they do, deal with riots. This is what the National Guard is built for. It's insane, by the way, insane that we're even having this argument. This is how dead set determined Democrats are to not enforce the law. Want another example? And if the story sounds familiar, we had the same thing happen here in Washington, and now it's happening in Oregon because they see a crack in the facade, they see a chink in the armor, they're able to do this. The city of Eugene is facing a lawsuit from the American Civil Liberties Union. I don't think they represent anything about America anymore. It's just everybody wants to take down America. After refusing to disclose the locations of dozens of automated license plate readers operated across the city. According to Coin, the ACLU filed the lawsuit late last month on behalf of Eyes Off Eugene member Seth May, a radical activist organization who says the city's secrecy surrounding the flock safety surveillance cameras erodes public trust. You know what they're actually mad about? They're reading license plates and can tell you who registered them. And by telling you who registered them, then guess what you can find out? Whether that person is in this country legally or illegally. Very clever move, by the way. When I was with police officers in my ride-along here in Seattle, they have these specialty cars, which have the units on the roof of the cars, and wherever the SPD squad car is driving, those cameras will read license plates of cars around them to search for stolen cars. Well, if you're dealing with gangs and such, you can get them that way as well. According to court filings, May submitted a public records request in mid-June seeking the camera locations. City officials denied the request weeks later, citing an exemption in Oregon's public records law. May appealed the denial to Lane County District Attorney's Office, but the DA upheld the decision, ruling that the public interest in disclosure did not outweigh the reasons for keeping the locations confidential. Exactly right. The lawsuit challenges that decision, arguing that federal law enforcement agencies have previously accessed data from flock cameras, including U.S. immigration and custom enforcement operations. Quote, mass surveillance through the use of technology like flock cameras presents a dangerous threat to every Oregonian's privacy and rights to be free from the invasion of unjustified government searches in our personal lives. You know what? Hang on a second. I think I'm changing my mind on the ACLU. Can you guys get rid of the traffic cameras? Can I not get red light tickets anymore? Can we get rid of those? Maybe. I have no problem using these cameras to get people who are here illegally or criminals or stolen cars. However, it seems like these guys don't want them to get anybody. They just realize they're being used by ICE, they're being used by the feds, and they want to shut this down. This is very similar to what happened in Auburn, when the Auburn Police Department said, oh, we didn't know they were using our technology to find the illegal aliens. Oh, we're in this with you. By the way, the Auburn Police Department caving like that and the Auburn mayor caving like that was really disappointing. It should have been, yeah, we're using it to get criminals. What are you mad about? Our job is to get criminals. Why are you upset with us with doing your job? At the end of the day, the people who are pushing for this radical social upheaval of not having police departments, abolishing police departments, not letting police do their jobs, not letting the National Guard do their jobs, not letting anybody do their jobs. They want anarchy on the streets. They want anarchy. That is what they want. Do I really need to read another list of all the illegal aliens and what they've done in our area to prove to you that these people are dangerous? But no, people are going to claim I'm racist, right? Even though, Mike, we just name them in the order they are, and they're not all brown people, but that's what they like to say. It just ain't true. It just ain't true. So what's the goal here? To take down America, to take down law and order, to take down our society. And yet, when you call Democrats on this, you know, the Democrats have the easiest way to start winning elections again without endorsing the Democrat Socialists of America, which we'll see what happens tomorrow. You know what it was? You could go back to, yeah, we believe in enforcing the law. Yeah, we believe in national security, but we're going to debate how much the government gives out in welfare. We're going to debate how much the government has to do with your social lives. You know what? You can go back to that and you'll probably get a lot more support. But because you're saying we don't want police to enforce the laws and we don't want the Border Patrol to enforce the borders and we want open borders, you know, no country in Europe deals with this nonsense anymore. They all decide to start cracking down on it. Because they've seen how uncontrolled illegal immigration, uncontrolled migration, it's not illegal when they're allowing it, does to their countries. You want that to happen here? You want to end up like the UK? I'm surprised they still have a monarchy in the UK and that the radical Islamists haven't overthrown the monarchy yet. I'm kind of curious how long Prince William's reign is even going to be when he becomes king, given what they've allowed to happen in that country. And make no mistake about it, that's exactly what's at stake this election cycle. Because the DSA and organizations like CARE, who's an unindicted co-conspirator in terrorist groups, are the ones who are trying to take power to enable more of this. Lots more of this. And meanwhile, we're arguing about the GOP civil war. Guys, you have to focus on what's at stake tomorrow. Tomorrow, we can win back control of the Washington State Legislature. We really can. We really can. You can get more common sense people like Kevin Schilling, who's a Democrat, who we like, who's a Democrat. We don't hate Democrats on the show. We like Democrats we can have conversations with and disagreements with and come to common ground with. That's what we like. You get people like Michelle Caldier elected. You can get these common sense candidates elected. And you know what? If you do that, we have a chance of actually stopping this radical DSA CARE takeover of our area, at least putting the brakes on it for a few years. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Speaking of these radical organizations, BLM is in the crosshairs of the Trump administration. Now that there's a Department of Justice investigation, it looks like they're pulling a boiler room and shredding their documents. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back, but first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you want to enter our latest contest, make sure you download the KVI app. There you can enter to win tickets to an advanced screening of The Running Man with me, Mike, and Zach from The Morning Show. 4 days before it comes out, that's right, at Pacific Place on November 10th. Enter to win your pair of tickets exclusively on the KVI app, which is available to download free in the Apple and Android app stores. The Running Man is in theaters, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, Premium Large Format, and IMAX on November 14th. You get to see it 4 days early with us. And I've been saying we need a remake of The Running Man. I'm kind of curious to see if I'm going to eat my words or if I'm actually going to enjoy this thing. Looks like a lot of fun. Saw this headline here. The DOJ is apparently investigating BLM leadership over $90 million in donations. Where did all that money go during the BLM riots? We all asked this question. In fact, it wasn't just me asking this question. You know who else it was? It was the BLM chapters themselves saying, where did all this money go? Millions of dollars raised, and it wasn't going to the BLM chapters. Then we find out the BLM founders are buying these mansions, and not just one mansion, multiple mansions all over the place. Tonight, I'm going to be on Turning Point USA Tonight, TPT, over on their social media channels, actually discussing this with Joe Bob, but you get the preview right here. You get it right here by listening to the show. Federal prosecutors have opened an investigation to senior leaders of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation over allegations that tens of millions of dollars raised during the 2020 protests were mishandled. According to Fox News, the Justice Department probe, led by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, is reportedly examining whether the foundation's leaders or affiliated organizations misused charitable contributions collected in the wake of George Floyd's death. The group brought in over $90 million during that period. You know, I tried to research this one time too, and I think I'm going to be all clever. All these news people are busy with other stories, but me, Ari Hoffman, before I had a radio show, and before my bounce house company was shut down, I said, you know what, let me look up their tax returns. Because every organization has public tax returns they need to file. None of the information was there. Apparently, I'm not the only one who thought to do so because investigators have already issued subpoenas and executed at least one search warrant as part of the ongoing inquiry, though no criminal charges have been filed. The DOJ has not commented publicly on the case. The Associated Press reported that the investigation began under the Biden administration. So all of you out there who think Trump is just being politically motivated, this started because BLM chapters were saying, where's all the money we gave? You know why I think the Biden administration did it? Probably to find out where all that money went, thinking it should probably go to them for campaigning. But it wasn't, because it went to BLM instead. In a statement to the AP, Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation denied being the subject of any federal criminal investigation, saying it remains committed to transparency and accountability. Not sure about that. Turns out that in February, BLM, it was revealed that the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, had issued a $24.7 million grant to the George Soros Tide Center, which later funneled more than $12.6 million into BLM. The funds were distributed at the height of the 2020 riots. So now you've got the Tides Foundation and you've got Soros involved with BLM and the riots. This is all making a lot of sense now. Now, as much as these guys say they had nothing to do with it and they did nothing wrong, the New York Post has a follow-up to the story, my friends. This came out today. Embattled BLM co-founder Patrisse Cullors and her wife have dissolved their consulting business and sold their joint LA home while she's dropped her spouse's name. Is this divorce, or is this hiding from the feds, or is it a quick, where's a non-extradition country? We can get there quick. Let's do this Fast and Furious style. We've seen those movies. How quickly can we get to Rio or something? Details about the personal moves, surfaced as BLM Foundation that Cullors helped found is reportedly in the crosshairs of the Department of Justice for possibly defrauding its donors out of tens of millions of dollars during the country's 2020 racial justice protests. I like the way the New York Post phrases that. See, every now and again, I disagree with the way the New York Post wrote something, which is why I'm like, oh, you got some lefties working over there. It's fine. It's fine. I like the New York Post. It isn't yet clear who the feds are eyeing in the probe, but subpoenas and at least one search warrant were issued in recent weeks. You know what's going on at Patrisse Cullors' house right now would be my guess. This is a total guess, just based on this article. You ever see the movie Boiler Room? You know when they have the location across the street where they're shredding all the documents? That's what I think is happening. Cullors abruptly resigned from the organization in 2021 amid widespread scrutiny over her lavish lifestyle and where the money was going, multi-million-dollar real estate buying binge. Among the properties that raised eyebrows was a sprawling Toronto mansion brought by M4BJ, a Toronto-based nonprofit set up by Cullors' wife, Janya Khan, and another Canadian activist in 2021. BLM transferred millions of dollars to the Canadian charity to purchase the property. Oh, I'm sure this is all on the up and up, right? This seems totally legit to me. Cullors, a 42-year-old artist who says her work focuses on, quote, the trauma of being black in America and also our resilience, did not respond to a post request for comment. The status of the pair's personal relationship is unclear. Cullors, who has a son, wed Khan in 2016, but they dissolved their LLC, Janaya and Patrisse Consulting, in 2023, and Cullors is no longer using Khan as part of her hyphenated last name. Yeah, quick, hide all the assets. Get rid of them. We're divorced. Pay no attention to that person. Khan also transferred a portion of their joint $1.4 million home in Topanga Canyon Road near Malibu to Colors before the property was sold in September of 2024. I hope you held on to that money. You're probably going to need it for your legal bills, would be my guess. Colors has meanwhile apparently been focusing on her art. I'm just an artist. Oh, this is great. She held her debut solo show between the Warp and Weft, weaving shields of strength and spirituality in Los Angeles last year. It included knives and scythes adorned with shells and textiles to create what Colors referred to as a sanctuary of reflection and empowerment. Mike, I think we're doing life wrong. You know what we have to do? We have to take a canvas and just throw garbage at it for a while, and then just give it some highty-tighty sounding name, put it up on a wall somewhere, hold an art opening and go, it has value for my struggle, right? Whatever it is, for the resistance. And then we can make $1 gajillion off art. No, you know what? We're doing life wrong. Can we somehow be related to the Trump family? Oh, no, wait. Trump family doesn't do this. It's the Biden family that sells finger paintings for gajillions of dollars. And then you curry favor with the yeah. You know what? I should have married into the Biden. No, I shouldn't have. No, that would have been bad. Bad, 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 bad. No, thank you. No, thank you. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, so much more to talk about, including all this insanity going on in New York. How is the election going to shape up tomorrow? Plus, Gavin Newsom is running for president, isn't running for president. His own debates. He's debating himself in his own interviews. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Gavin Newsom is out doing interviews, and it is very, very clear what Gavin Newsom's challenge with running for president is going to be. Gavin Newsom. That's going to be his biggest problem. I said this at the time. Do you remember when Gavin Newsom was going out there talking about how great Joe Biden was, and he was being a surrogate for the campaign? What he was doing was just trying to build favor with the Democrat Party, so that way they would come to him and say, yep, Gavin, you're our guy. You're a good little soldier. It's your turn. We're just going to give you the nomination, and off you go. Well, the problem with Gavin Newsom saying that he was a surrogate or being a surrogate for Joe Biden was that you had to defend Joe Biden, which was completely indefensible once he had his colossal breakdown on stage. And I remember, I have to go back and find the clips, Mike, where Gavin Newsom was talking about how great Joe Biden was after the disastrous debate with Donald Trump. It was so bad that NBC even asked him about it.
Of serving as president until January of 2029?
Yeah, I think my focus was frankly situational. It was making sure Donald Trump didn't get back into office to experience everything that we're experiencing today. And there was no interaction I had that suggested otherwise.
What do you say to Americans who feel misled by you and other top Democrats
in what respect? He decided to step
about
down.
The mental acuity of President Biden, that they wish you'd sounded the alarm sooner to give way for an open convention?
I'm not going to substitute myself for someone else or for popular opinion. I'm going to express my relationship to my truth with the former president of the United States.
To my truth? So you're admitting you're lying? Can we go back to the beginning of that for a second?
Did you legitimately believe that he was capable of serving as president until January of 2029?
Yeah, I think my focus was frankly situational. It was making sure Donald Trump didn't get back into office.
So you admit you were lying just because you didn't want Donald Trump getting back into office. What else are you lying about? Your entire record is a train wreck disaster. You were mayor of San Francisco. San Francisco got worse. You were governor of California. California went from having a surplus to a deficit. You made everything worse. And then you decide, hey, you know what? I could take on the rest of the country because that hasn't been screwed up enough. So you're admitting you were lying. This is my absolute favorite part of the interview. When Gavin Newsom says there's nothing he dislikes more than a politician who lies to you and then goes ahead and lies to the audience.
You've said, as we've discussed, you are considering a run for president, and you've said you'll make a decision about whether to run for president after the midterms.
Yeah, I mean,
Governor, let me ask you, why do you want to be president?
I don't. I'm not suggesting I am. I'm saying in response to someone talked about it, and I hate when nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break. So as it relates to that, there's nothing on the right. I'm focused on Prop 50. I'm focusing on fair and free elections. And to the extent fate, the future, there's an alignment, you have a big enough why, you have a what and a how, you meet a moment, and that moment presents itself in a year and a half, we'll see what happens.
Nothing I hate more than politicians who lie to me, and now this politician's lying to me about whether or not he's going to run for office. Why'd you have Charlie Kirk on your podcast? Why do you have a podcast? Why are you doing all these interviews right now? Why are you doing national interviews? If you're focused on the stuff in your state, do the local interviews. But it's because you want to run for president. We all understand this, right? We're all in agreement about this. We all understand what's happening here. So the guy who hates when people lie to him is now lying to everybody, making sure we got this. You know, there's another clip that was going around social media over the weekend. I don't know who this guy is. His TikTok handle is Chappin Easy. Now, this guy, I think, has been writing articles for Real Change, which is the far-left homeless outlet around here, which is just far-left propaganda sold by homeless people on the streets. But he's been destroying Katie Wilson. And he's destroying her from the left side of the aisle about how fake she is. Give a listen.
Katie Wilson was fan fiction written by the white progressive media
Outlets like The Stranger, The Urbanist, they cooked up this persona, then tried to spread it all throughout Seattle, but it did not work. They have a habit of doing this, creating these myths of people that don't necessarily have government experience, don't have connections to community, especially.
He's 100% right, by the way. Mike, one of the things you guys rag on me all the time is when I talk like I'm from Seattle, but anybody can tell I'm not from Seattle. I never fake it. I always say I'm from New York. But when I'm like, well, I've been here for 22 years, I'm almost a native. No, you can always tell when somebody's not. Though, Mike, I do have a question for you. So next year, I did the math. Next year, I will have lived in Seattle longer than I lived in New York. Does that make me a Seattleite or not?
That's a hard one, because I think it goes back to how you self-identify.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's some of the things you and I have talked about when I've kind of ragged on you on some of those things. I'm like, dude, you've lived here almost longer.
Exactly.
So what happens when it eclipses that and it does become longer? Time will tell.
I think you can't hide where you're from. Not that I would ever want to. I'm very obvious about that. I grew up in New York. You can tell by how loud and obnoxious I am. You can tell where I'm from. Most people, it's not a surprise when they find out I'm from New York. I think they'd be surprised if they found out I was from here.
Well, and I've had conversations with friends of mine who are transplants also, and it becomes the difference between what is home and where you live. And I have seen both sides of that, where it's like a transplant is like, well, that's where I grew up, that's where I was born, but this is my home. I've heard that the opposite. It's like, I was born there, I was raised there, that's home, I just live here.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, for example, I was born in Seattle and I was raised in the North End, Linwood area. I've lived in the South End most of my adult life. So I would consider more the South End to be my home, whereas I come from, Seattle and the North End, that kind of thing.
I'm starting to get to that place because my home is the place I pay the mortgage on. So I'm starting to that is my home. I don't think of my parents' home as my home, aside from the fact that they're divorced and don't live in the homes I grew up in anymore. There's that too. Those are not my homes. My home is the one I share with my wife and my kids and all that. That is my home.
Right, the home that you've built with your family.
Exactly. That is my home.
Whereas other folks think it's like, yeah, well, my parents still live in the house I grew up in. That's home.
Yeah, I think it may have been made easier by the fact that my parents sold that house when I went to my gap year in Israel, and that house I haven't lived in since I was 18 years old, so that's a little different. But why do I bring this up? You've got Katie Wilson running against Bruce Harrell. Katie Wilson is a transplant who never really put down roots here. She really didn't. Now, I don't like Bruce Harrell. In fact, I'd say the biggest critic of Bruce Harrell in Seattle is me. I ran against him for office because I thought he was so terrible and destroying my community. But you know what? Let's put him up against Katie Wilson for a second here, just on paper. Katie Wilson, no experience whatsoever. Bruce Harrell has been in government a very, very long time and actually was a lawyer before that. He's had moderate success as a lawyer, enough to run for office, okay? Katie Wilson's never had a real job. Bruce Harrell, his father came from the Jim Crow South to Seattle. His mother was interned during Japanese internment. The guy is from Seattle. The guy played UW football. Her trying to claim she's more Seattle than Bruce Harrell is dumb. That is a losing argument. And her claiming that she knows what's best for Seattle is dumb. That is a losing argument. She was basically created in a lab. These videos trying to make her seem more personable, more reasonable, like she can actually handle this job. She can't. And I say this as somebody who literally wrote in my dead grandfather for the job because I think he's more qualified than either of them. But yes, this guy from Real Change is 100% right. Katie Wilson was created by the stranger. Katie Wilson was created by these outlets. Ironically, Real Change is one of the ones backing Katie Wilson also. Only good news to wrap up the show, my friends. Good news headlines. Put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news headlines, let me tell you how you can win fantabulous prizes, because I know a lot of you want to know when contests are coming back. Congratulations, my friends. They are back. We have a KVI app exclusive ticket giveaway to an advanced screening of The Running Man. You get to go with me, Big Mike, and Zach from The Morning Ride for an advanced screening of Paramount's The Running Man at Pacific Place on November 10th. Now, it's going to be starring Glenn Powell, who you know from Top Gun Maverick, and that rom-com with Sydney Sweeney, which we're all kind of jealous of him in that one, and we all know why. Right, Mike? There you go.
2 huge reasons.
So, here's how you enter to win. Download the KVI app from either the Android or the Apple App Store. Download them. Download the app right there. And on the app, you can enter to win. Is it going to ask you for personal information? Yes. But if you don't give it the personal information, you won't be able to win the fantabulous prizes, because how would they be able to contact you? So you do have to enter that information. But The Running Man is in theaters on November 10th, and you get to see it with us 4 days early. Plus, going to the theaters with us is a whole experience on its own, and we would love to see you there. So make sure you download the KVI app. Plus, when you download the KVI app, I got to tell you something, guys. I'm about to change your lives. Why? Because those of you who listen on AM and may have Apple or Android Auto or any of those things in your car, KVI app, no interference. So you know what? You don't get the static when you go under bus lines or anything like that. The Running Man is in theaters, Dolby Cinema 4DX, Premium Large Format, and IMAX on November 14th. Download the KVI app right now. Now, I didn't know this. Mike brought this to my attention. It is National Sandwich Day. I love a good sandwich. Me personally, I'm a roast beef or pastrami or corned beef kind of guy. Put them all together, I'm equally happy. Get me one of those big sucker New York deli style sandwiches with the toothpick through it to hold it together because it might be falling apart. Oh, there's nothing better. Now, I know some of you are going to yell at me. I am not a mustard guy. I am one of the mayo guys. Now, mind you, I don't put mayo on that kind of meat. I put mayo on other things. But, yeah, you put some mayo on a sandwich or some ketchup on a sandwich, that's me. I know some of you think I'm sacrilegious right there. Some barbecue sauce. Oh, barbecue sauce. But you know the beautiful thing about a sandwich? There's no wrong way to make a sandwich as long as it has meat in it. There's no wrong way to make a sandwich. I will live and die by that. So, according to King 5 News, the holiday is celebrated each year on November 3rd with several restaurants offering freebies and discounts. Jimmy John's is offering a 50% discount on its Pickwich when you purchase any toasted sandwich. You can use the code TOASTED on their website. Firehouse Subs is offering a free medium core 4 sandwich. Hook and Ladder Firehouse Meatball. Oh, meatball sandwich. I haven't had one of those probably since college. It has been that long since I had a meatball sandwich. I love a meatball sandwich. You know, one of my favorite ones is actually the chicken finger sandwiches. When you put the chicken fingers in the sandwich and then you put the honey mustard dressing. Oh my God. There was this restaurant I used to work at in New York when I was in college. Meatball with the chicken fingers. That thing was an artery clogger. Oh my God, as a starving college student who had no money, that was my favorite thing to get. That's why I started working at that place. I got dinner, I got lunch, and I got money in my pocket. That place was great.
My goodness. The good thing it's close to dinner time for folks making their commutes home. I'm sure folks will be dropping off to get some sandwiches. All right, look, before we get out of here, let me throw this out there to you and to the audience. You can text us at 206-421-5757. Ari, you mentioned as long as it's got meat on it, it's a sandwich. Is that true?
Well, I mean, I like a tuna sandwich. You know me.
Sure.
I have a tuna sandwich all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is that I said there is no wrong way to make a sandwich as long as it has meat on it.
Yeah. So I don't put cheeky fingies on my peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, that's a fair point.
I don't put meatballs on my grilled cheese.
Another case of Hoffman saying something that most of the people, when you think about it for 2 seconds, go, that makes no sense.
Well, how about this? And we'll leave you with this as well. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, we're not doing that debate, are we? That takes me way, way back. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and more opportunities for you to win tickets to see The Running Man. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.